Hi guys, it is Tamara. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Welcome back today. We're going to be talking about the traumatic impact of the news and the media and the internet on our psychological and emotional strength. I think that we've been going through a lot recently, and we've had a lot of news coverage. We've had a lot of information thrown at us. We've had a lot of emotional stimulation from the media, from online reports, from forums, from, websites like Twitter and websites like Facebook. I feel like we've been kind of overstimulated by some of the news. I found a couple of people contacted me saying, how can I escape this? What do I do to get away from all of this? And, I feel like I'm being traumatized by the news. I look up and there's, George Floyd protests and riots and funeral, that whole day funeral that we watched. And it was a series of days that they had funerals scheduled for George Floyd. That took an impact. And then now we have Rayshard Brooks. We also have that video footage that's really difficult to watch. And on top of that, we have reports of coronavirus coming back in certain areas. I think there was 11 cases found as of recently. So we've gone through a lot over the past couple of months. And so I think this video needs to focus on the vicarious trauma that you are likely to experience. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about ways that you can combat this vicarious trauma. So thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For those who are subscribed and for those who are new, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button so you can stick around with us and be a part of our growing community. The benefits for you in today's video is that I'm going to highlight the symptoms of PTSD, the 3 different categories, and I'm also going to talk about how the news media has triggered us. You know that I talk a lot about trauma. That's my specialization. I'm internationally certified as a trauma therapist, and I've been certified to work with families and individuals who are dealing with trauma. And one of the things that I focus on in my specialization is vicarious trauma or secondary trauma and compassion fatigue and burnout. And one of the things I've noted over time is that the news media has a way of kind of triggering us emotionally and psychologically. It has a way of really stimulating us and making us feel overwhelmed and overstimulated. If you turn on the television, you're going to see something. If you go online, you're going to see something. If you go in public, you're going to see something. And it's just like there's no escape, right? You're trying to navigate your own world in the midst of all of this upsetting media information. And so you could experience quite a bit of symptoms. One of the things that you can experience is what my colleagues and I refer to as central nervous system dominance. Central nervous system dominance, right over here. And that's when the central nervous system has been stimulated by something that is basically being perceived by the brain to be an emotional or psychological or physiological threat. So an example of central nervous system dominance is heart rate going up, racing thoughts, sweating, shaking and nervousness and anxiety and having a panic attack. That's central nervous system dominance. Let me break apart what happens in central nervous system dominance. So we have what's known as the central nervous system, And I don't know if I have any paper to kind of write this out for you. Give me 1 second, guys. I want to walk you through this so that you can kind of see what I'm doing. Let me get some paper, and I'm going to walk you through this because I want you to see exactly what I'm talking about. All right. So central nervous system dominance. So this is what happens. Okay. We have the brain and the spinal cord. All right. So this is how we are designed as humans. Okay. Underneath all of our flesh, we have the brain, and then the central nervous system goes down the vertebrae. Okay. And in that central nervous system, we have the brain, and then we have the spinal cord. Okay, and so this is how this looks, right? We have the brain and we have the spinal cord, and the spinal cord is encased in the vertebrae, okay, in the bony structure of the vertebrae. So the central nervous system really has a lot to do with the central parts of who we are, right? We have to be able to think, right? It has a lot to do with the blood flow and a lot of our autonomic processes in our body. But then we also have different systems. So we have the central nervous system, and then we have the autonomic nervous system. So let me help you see what that looks like. We have the central nervous system, and then we have the autonomic nervous system. All right, so here's what we're doing here. We have the central nervous system, and then we also have the autonomic nervous system. All right, in the central nervous system is that brain and the spinal cord. But in the autonomic nervous system, we have two systems, okay? We have the sympathetic nervous system, and we have the parasympathetic nervous system. This is a little scientific here, so I'm going to make sure to break it down for you, I promise. So the central nervous system, again, is the spinal cord and the brain. And then we have the autonomic nervous system, which is comprised of two other systems, okay? And that's the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, in medical terminology, para means around. Okay, so the parasympathetic nervous system is what I always refer to on this channel as the brake, and the sympathetic nervous system is what I always refer to on this channel as the gas pedal. So the gas pedal is a part of the system where everything is sped up. When something is perceived by the brain to be a threat, the central nervous system goes right into fight or flight mode. That kicks on the autonomic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. In the sympathetic nervous system, we have heart palpitations, we have blood pressure rising, we have heart rate going up, we have the kidneys not performing, right? We also have a reduction in hunger, right? We start sweating and getting nervous. Our body is revving up. It's like a gas pedal. The parasympathetic nervous system usually is the brake pedal, and that's the part of the body that calms down when there's no more threat, right? When the tiger has passed us and hasn't attacked us, the parasympathetic nervous system steps in and it slows down everything. It's the brake pedal in our body, okay? Everything that is sped up, the parasympathetic nervous system decreases that, all right? So what happens here is you're sitting in front of the television and a news report comes on and George Floyd's name is on the television screen, or Rayshard Brooks. And then they say something like, before we play the video, this is going to be quite disturbing. And then they show the video. You might end up going into sympathetic nervous system arousal. Okay, and everything in your body is kicking on, almost like you're in fight or flight mode. Now, once that report is over and the news goes on to something else, like a parade coming up or something fun, then your body goes into parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, it's like your body turns off and on. So that is the first thing that happens. Now, the second thing that happens is there are two different parts of your brain that begins to try to interpret what's going on. The amygdala, and I talk about it up here in this video, the amygdala tries to interpret what you're watching. And if it senses that there's some kind of emotional or psychological threat, it's going to kick on. And that's going to kick on all the other systems in your body and your brain to respond emotionally. The cortex is the other part of the brain that gets triggered, and it's going to try to rationalize and make sense out of what you're watching on television and what's going on all around you. So these are the two systems that I want you guys to understand happens to you when you're watching the media, when you're watching the news. You have central nervous system and autonomic nervous system arousal, and then you also have the brain that kicks on in addition to that system arousal. All right? So now there's another part of this that can start to really get bad. Now, if you find yourself responding in a way that's not healthy and you're not seeing yourself come back from that, I want you to remember that you could be experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, there are three systems in post-traumatic stress disorder that I want you to be aware of. The first is the psychological component of PTSD. In the psychological component of PTSD, you're dealing with flashbacks, you're dealing with fears, anxiety. You're also dealing with an inner sense of mistrust of things around you and people around you, right? So you're watching the media and you're beginning to be psychologically affected or impacted by the media. So then you go out into society and you realize, wait a minute, I'm coming across people and I'm looking at them sideways. I don't know if I trust them. Okay. I don't know why I'm feeling stressed or defensive. I don't know why I'm having flashbacks at night while I'm trying to sleep, right? I'm flashing back to what I saw on the news, or I'm going back to the protest I was a part of, or I'm going back to the fires I observed. I don't realize that I'm doing this, but my mind is doing this. Okay. The second thing is behavioral. And, you know, when you're possibly experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder or acute stress disorder, the behavioral part of this is really important. If if you find yourself beginning to respond to your environment in an agitated fashion, in an irritable fashion, in a hostile fashion, right? You're also feeling kind of hypervigilant, then you know something's going on with you far beyond just normal stress, right? You know that, okay, I am being acutely impacted by what I'm watching on television. And the last system is the physiological system. And I want you guys to be aware of insomnia and nightmares and racing heart, right? Racing thoughts. These are very, very important signs that you are experiencing what is known as vicarious or secondary trauma. This is not a temporary stress response. It's vicarious or secondary. And this kind of stress and trauma requires intervention. So I want you guys to kind of do a self-evaluation. Am I experiencing this? Am I dealing with this? And if I am experiencing or dealing with this, then I need to reach out to somebody who can help me, either my primary care physician or my therapist, because this is far beyond stress. This is now a response that is vicarious and indirect. And I need to be able to figure out how to calm my world so I do not spiral out of control. So I hope this video was helpful to you guys. If it was, please go ahead and comment in the comment section below and give this video a thumbs up. And if you want to stick around with us, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I will be back with tips on what you can do to combat this and what you can do to kind of help yourself cope with the news media and everything that we are watching on television. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.